I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's stories. Lebanese officials arrived at Lebanon's top Sunni religious institution to elect a higher Islamic council that would manage the body's affairs. LF leader Samir Jaja agrees with the Free Patriotic Movement after an extensive dialogue on several legislative priorities. And rebels, including al-Qaeda loyalists, stormed a complex in northwestern Syria where some 250 regime loyalists have been trapped for 2 weeks. Lebanese officials arrived at Lebanon's top Sunni religious institution to elect a higher Islamic council that would manage the body's affairs. The election comes 9 months after the election of Grand Mufti Abdul Latif Darian, ending over a year of disputes that marred the functions of the council. There is a climate of consensus and a shared will to elect a new higher Islamic council, and this is something we badly need, are the words of Prime Minister Tamam Salam speaking to reporters before entering the election hall in Dar al-Fatwa in Beirut. Salam, who spoke alongside Darian, praised the latter for the moderation he has shown in his recent positions and actions. Darian has stressed that the past page has been turned, highlighting that the elections are independent from all political interventions. The body split into two in April 2013, with the former Grand Mufti Sheikh Mohammed Rashid Kabbani holding a council election contrary to the wishes of 21 members of the 282-member body who are close to the Future movement and who for months earlier extended the term of the council for 1 year. The row ended when an Egyptian-Saudi brokered agreement led to the election of Darian as Grand Mufti last August, after which the council created by Kabbani was dissolved. Maronite Patriarch Sharadai is lamenting the ongoing vacancy in the presidency, and he's urging officials to perform their constitutional duties in order to hold the presidential elections. He said he hopes during his Sunday sermon that lawmakers would bravely arm themselves with the freedom of choice and opinion in electing a candidate. He added that they should adopt actual initiatives that would enable them to elect a head of state before May 25th. Lebanon has been without a president since May 25th of last year, when the term of Michel Sleiman ended without the election of a successor. Ongoing disputes between the rival March 8 and 14 camps over a compromise candidate have thwarted the polls. The dialogue with the Free Patriotic Movement has strategic dimensions. Lebanese Forces Chief Samir Jaja announced, saying the two parties have finally reached an agreement on several legislative priorities. The FPM-LF dialogue has begun taking strategic and not merely tactical dimensions, Jaja told a crowd of party affiliates who gathered in Germany for the annual Lebanese Forces Conference in Europe. Speaking to the conference via Skype, Jaja said the declaration of intent between the two parties was ready and would be announced soon. The two parties have also announced their support for extending Lebanese citizenship to expat communities abroad. The move has been mainly championed by Christian parties, given the popular estimation that the majority of Lebanese expats are Christians. Both the LF and FPM are also opposed to the current electoral law, known as the 1960 law, holding that it allows the election of Christian lawmakers by the votes of non-Christians, thus reflecting an inaccurate picture of partisan popularities. Municipal Chief of Arsel Ali Al-Hujairi is stressing that the battles between Hezbollah and the Syrian regime against opposition groups have not reached the northeastern border town. It is not in the party's interest to expand the area of its fighting because this is a very large area, he explained in reference to the ongoing battles for control of the Syrian border area of Qalamun. Hujairi emphasized that the fighting is currently limited to the outskirts of Bital and Baalbek and the Asal al-Warid in Syria. Fighting intensified in the past week in the mountainous Qalamun region across the border from Lebanon, where militants from the Islamic State group and the al-Qaeda-affiliated Nusra Front are entrenched. The control of the area on the outskirts of Asal al-Warid came following heavy clashes with the Nusra Front, which resulted in 12 members of Hezbollah being killed. Artworks, performances, and cuisine from Lebanon and Europe are some of the offerings on the menu at the Common Fest, a 4-day event organized here in Beirut. The festival kicks off at La Magnonerie, a former silk factory built in the 19th century, attracting locals and foreigners alike. This is the first time we've created such an event in Beirut with art and culinary art. As you can see, we wanted to create through this event a bridge between Europe and Lebanon So what we did is that we invited 22 artists from abroad, and we have 20 Lebanese participating in this festival, all to exhibit their photos, illustrations, work, and some of them even performing live. Those are the words of creative director at Matisse Events, Dominique Chouchani. Many of the European artists showcased at the Common Fest are from Berlin, whom Chouchani said she'd met while living in the German capital. According to her, Matisse Events are planning to take the festival to Berlin in the summer. Rebels, including al-Qaeda loyalists, stormed a complex in northwestern Syria where some 250 regime loyalists have been trapped for 2 weeks. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said rebels had entered the hospital complex in the town of Jisr al-Shur, the rest of which they captured a fortnight ago. Observatory Director Rami Abdurrahman said the assault began with a car bombing carried out by a member of al-Qaeda's Syrian affiliate and Nusra Front. It is the first time that the rebels have managed to penetrate the complex. Among the 250 people holed up inside are around 150 regime troops, including high-ranking officers, as well as their family members and some civil servants, according to Abdurrahman. Rebels seized Jisr al-Shur on April 25th, extending their gains in Idlib, where they have also captured the provincial capital and a military base in recent weeks. Renegade Yemeni troops who helped Shia rebels to seize much of the country said that they have accepted a Saudi proposal for a ceasefire after more than 6 weeks of airstrikes. The announcement comes as Saudi-led warplanes hit the Sana'a residence of ousted President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who is accused of orchestrating the alliance between the renegade units and the rebels. There was no immediate word from the Houthi rebels themselves on whether they too have accepted Saudi Arabia's offer of a 5-day pause from Tuesday in the devastating air war it has led in support of exiled President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi. The truce moves comes as the United Nations expressed mounting concern about the civilian death toll from the bombing campaign and the humanitarian impact of the air and sea blockade that Saudi Arabia and its allies have imposed on its neighbor. Coming up next, Cuban President Raul Castro is welcomed at the Vatican by Pope Francis. Stay with us. 20 o'clock news here on Future Television. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu summarized the achievement of his exiting government as he prepares to lead a new coalition. Netanyahu completed the formation of a new coalition last week, putting him at the helm of a hardline government that appears to be set on a collision course with the U.S. and other key allies. The new Israeli government is expected to be sworn in this week. The Israeli Prime Minister said that his exiting government made every effort to stop Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and that it attempted to reach an agreement with the Palestinians. Netanyahu blamed Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas for the failure of peace talks. Cuban President Raul Castro has been welcomed at the Vatican by Pope Francis, who played a key role in the breakthrough between Washington and Havana, aimed at restoring U.S.-Cuban diplomatic ties. The Vatican characterized France's meeting with Castro as strictly private. In keeping with France's informal style, the two met in a studio near the Vatican Public Audience Hall instead of in the more imposing library in the Apostolic Palace, where heads of state traditionally are received. The Pope will stop in Cuba in September for a visit, part of a pilgrimage that will take him to Washington, Philadelphia, and New York. Castro's brother Fidel, the Cuban revolutionary leader who ruled for decades before Raul, met with Pope John Paul II at the Vatican in 1996. We have to cut this short to go live to the Grand Mufti.